It's tough to be full strength when you're playing on such short notice. What do the Chiefs look like, and who are they going to have for Pittsburgh? Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. Welcome to Christmas week. We have some small gifts for you and a couple of requests as well. We're brought to you by FanDuel. You can get a huge return right now by being a new customer and placing a $5 bet. You're going to get $250 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We need to get started as well. This has been a whirlwind. We're going to go through everything that we know currently, as the Chiefs didn't practice on Sunday, but they did put out a practice report. We'll tell you all about it as well as what it means. Coming up shortly, I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where you can get the athletic matrix as we start to look at the draft class coming up here in a month. Then you can get over to NFL 33 and RGR Football. Go to Chris's site, KC Chiefs Corner. Check out everything he's doing over there. And make sure that you like, sub, hit the bell. Thanks for being with us initially for your first listen. Make another Locked On show your next listen. Make sure that you want all the extra information. You get on the text line at 816-357-8781. And we'll get it all from there. We are going to go deeper. Upon further review, who stood out that maybe we didn't mention post-game, and what some of those takeaways are going to mean going forward, especially on a really short week like this. Before that, we're going to talk about the offense and what state it's in right now, what that means for this week and next week and everything all the way up through the playoffs. That's coming up next, but we start with a simulated practice report, including the injuries. Today, while the Chiefs didn't practice, had they practiced, they would not have had Chris Jones, DJ Humphries, as well as a couple others. Those are the guys that we really do want to spend time discussing because you could need them shortly. Even Matt Derrick was a little bit surprised. That is the big concern. So Jamari Connor, still in concussion protocol, didn't practice. DJ Humphries, obviously with the hamstring. We're hopeful. We'll see what happens, but they say he would not have practiced today had they gone. Jack Cochran, we know, is about to go to IR because of the fractured ankle, and then Chris Jones. On the bright side, there is Jawan Taylor, who would have been a light participant in practice today had they been able to. Everyone else that's listed with an injury would have been a full go. What does that tell you about the day after a ball game like that?
What it tells me is that they are going to have to recover. And at this point, I heard rumors that maybe a guy like DJ Humphries could be ready for the Thursday game. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Obviously, not practicing today, it makes you wonder if that's possible. But the reality is they're in a situation where they have to go in and they have to try to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. And you look at the Steelers injury report, they have a ton of injuries as well. 3 games in 10 days turns out isn't good for NFL football players. Who could have told you that? Interesting there. I just think that this whole thing needs to be something that the league looks at and says, maybe we don't do this again, because you can't expect this to be good football. And I think that's really the reality. And then the worst part for Kansas City, though, is who they're playing. It's not necessarily just that they're playing, it's who they're playing. They're playing 3 playoff teams with all these potential games that could affect playoff seeding. And obviously they all affect playoff seeding the entire season. I get that. But in December, when you're getting ready for the playoffs and you haven't had a bye since week 6, you're now dealing with this. Not Absolutely. A good situation for the Chiefs. The NFL really needs to get something figured out better. And I understand they want to, have games on Christmas. I get that to an extent, but this is beyond ridiculous. You and I talked about this before the season started. The only day that the Chiefs do not play on this season is Tuesday. Yeah. The only day, the entire NFL season, they don't play on a Tuesday. They're playing on Wednesday. They played Thursday. They played Friday. They played Saturday now, and they've obviously played on Sunday and Monday. So one day, the entire week that they haven't played, it's just crazy, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. I think no matter what, obviously you want to showcase your best talent. If you're the NFL, this is a little bit much. And God forbid everything that we hope happens, they have to do something about it next year. That will be a long discussion in the offseason. But for the record, the other team is just as hurting, if not more. Justin Fields, backup quarterback, wouldn't have practiced today. Schoreneck wouldn't have practiced. Mike Williams would have been out. Joey Porter Jr. would have been out. Makedevich would have been out. Roberts, So Amula, TJ Watt, very, very important, and Cam Hayward all would not have practice. They're mostly veterans there, especially the last two that are important. They would not have practiced for that rest factor. But it does look like George Pickens would have been a light participant. Larry Ogunjobi would have been a light participant today, as well as Deshaun Elliott and Dante Jackson. So a lot of guys are understanding that the circumstance here and coming back for it. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Obviously, very short week, you can't do a whole lot, but there are some names on there, particularly the last two, Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, that we have to keep an eye on. I assume they'll be good to go. They don't have much chance of winning this game if they don't. And so you have to give yourself the best chance to win. Another team almost took care of this because right now, the Chiefs win this game at Pittsburgh. Everybody gets the week off against Denver, and nothing matters. And you put a couple of weeks of rest back to back. That's what this game is about, is sealing that number one seed. It almost got done for them today. If the New England Patriots had been able to actually sustain their offense, they looked good at times. If they sustained it, they could have beaten the Bills. So that goes to show you, after the Bills destroyed the Lions last week, any game, any team can win any game, any week.
Yeah, and the one thing that really stinks about all this to me is now you're in a situation where you are looking at it and you're basically taking out the Bills' best chance for the number 2 seed in the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you win this week, you take out the Pittsburgh Steelers, that knocks them out of probably being in the contention for the number 2 seed, which probably means the Bills maybe decides, okay, well, we're going to rest our starters week 17 and 18 or 17 or 18 because they don't have to win games because they can't catch the Chiefs at that point if the Chiefs beat the Steelers. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, but Kansas City doesn't have the benefit of knowing what the Bills do. And they haven't had a chance to know that going into either game, Saturday or on a Wednesday now. And so, I mean, big issues. I think the NFL needs to figure this out and get better when it comes to playoff seeding and the schedule, because this is beyond ridiculous. I do think that when you look at how this is going to play out for the Chiefs, though, obviously getting basically 2 weeks worth of rest before they would have to play Denver if they were to lose this game, that's going to be good. The problem, though, is that then you run into the situation of if you beat the Steelers, you're almost going to give yourself 3 weeks off because, you're not going to play against the Broncos, and then you're going to have a week off before you play in the divisional game.
Yep.
That's a little bit of a long stretch.
It is, and that can help. The Chiefs kick off at 11. 1 Eastern. I guess that's going to be noon. So that sets them up. It's a Wednesday game. Then it's 4 days before you get to see the Bills. So the Bills will have everything that they need to know going in. The Chiefs will just have to make do with. It does come down to anybody can win any week. I can't project that the Jets are going to help you out much. So it comes back to, can you put up enough points to beat this Steelers team this week and take care of your own business and not worry about it? Who's on the offense that's rising them up right now, and how can they do that? That's coming up next. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has daily fantasy sports and makes it accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long at Prize Picks. They make it simple, and they even invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So sign up today and you can get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Game Time app and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. Super simple. Download that app, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and get that $50 bonus for playing a $5 lineup. Super easy over at Prize Picks. Now, one other thing that has to happen is you have to play under control. I thought the Chiefs' game plan for this last week against the Texans was just about perfect. They executed the quick game like we had talked about. They got in there and mixed it up in the run. Maybe not as per run success as you would like, but they had balance in their backs. I personally like that. I know Matt Derrick's not a big fan of it, but I want to see that carry load be distributed. And whoever the hot hand is, I'll ride it. It doesn't matter to me. But I think that prepares you for this game and the next game and the postseason. in the best possible way to have as many of your weapons available as possible. It's the guys that are stepping up. We talked about them post-game. Who stands out to you as now where they can focus against the Steelers?
It's tough. You look at this game, you look at what they did against the Texans, and what you saw with Hollywood Brown was encouraging. What you saw with Xavier Worthy was encouraging. And what you continue to see from DeAndre Hopkins is obviously encouraging. You have got guys like JuJu Smith-Schuster, who hasn't basically played much since DeAndre Hopkins came in. And I do think that that's partially DeAndre Hopkins, but I also think it's partially saving JuJu for the playoffs, because I do think that there's value there to have him be able to come in and spell a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. And obviously you've had the injury issues with Brown. You didn't know when you were going to get him back, and you didn't know how you were going to get him back. So that kind of plays into this. But when you start looking at the running back room, I really think watching the game yesterday or watching the game on Saturday, it really comes down to this for me. They looked at that game and they said, okay, we know what we've got with Pacheco. We know what we've got with Hunt, but we've used Hunt way more than we've used Pacheco this season. Pacheco needs to take some snaps. Pacheco needs to run the ball, and he can be effective, but he's not going to be as effective as Hunt is at different times. Does Andy Reid care about getting in those third and short situations and fourth and short situations? Yeah, he cares. Is he going to care enough to put Kareem Hunt in there every single play in a regular season game when he knows what's coming in January and February? I don't think so. If that is a playoff game, Kareem Hunt's the one taking the carry. I have no doubt in my mind on that at all whatsoever. I don't think that they're going to have Pacheco in that situation. They're going to give that to Hunt. Offensively, you have an idea of what you've got with some of these guys. You've got an idea of what you've got with Hollywood Brown now, and you can build on that in the Pittsburgh game, which is good, because if you don't play against the Broncos, that's the last time he's going to play for two more weeks. And his chemistry is still off with Mahomes to some extent. So you got to figure out and try to get that as good as you possibly can. Offensive line-wise, this is going to be a big test. If DJ Humphries can go, that's great. If Jawan Taylor can go, that's great. Then maybe you could have 5 guys that you feel good about. But this is a huge test going up against the Steelers front.
It certainly is. And to that point, having both TJ and Cam Hayward there, that's another reason why, if you can get DJ Humphries onto the field and he's able to go and you're not risking another injury where he has to come out of the game, then you're protecting both those positions, including Tooney being inside against Hayward most of the day. And that helps you overall as well. This is going to be a physical battle. And guys that were physical in this last ball game, I think one we didn't mention enough. And it's not just because he had this knack for making bigger plays. But as we go on, this is right about the time that Jet McKinnon really started to contribute to the playoff runs. And now we see a similar thing from a much bigger back, a much more powerful back. He doesn't have the same top gear, but Samaje Perine is starting to fill that role in a productive way that isn't just happenstance or waiting for Travis to pitch him the ball out of the blue, right? Like it is something that actually fills a role we've seen before.
Yeah, and you make a great point when you talk about Samaje Perine and compare him a little bit to Jet McKinnon. Now, obviously, the size and the stature is way different, and they're different types of players. I get all that, and you're absolutely right in that. But when you look at what Samaje Perine can bring to this offense, he's unselfish. He doesn't care. He will go in there and he will do whatever it is that you want him to do, and he'll do the dirty work. He doesn't mind getting his hat on somebody and protecting Mahomes. He will give his body for that. He's shown that multiple times this season. So it's somebody you can definitely trust when the game is on the line to pick up a blitz or a delayed blitz. That is something that's huge going into the playoffs. And he's been here the whole season. That's also big going into the playoffs. You actually know what you're going to have going into the season. He knows he's going to be ready for it. That's a big thing that, we really haven't had. Kansas City is now basically has 3 running backs that could potentially get 10 carry, be 10 touch guys in some offenses in the NFL. Kareem Hunt easily could be a 10 touch guy. Pacheco could be a starter. Perine could be a normal third down back every single game, but he doesn't have to be that guy here. He can be a change of pace. He can do different things for this offense, and that's what's important. And you saw it. That you saw how they used him. They sprinkled him in perfectly at different times for him to leak out of the backfield and get huge gains. It's so big for this offense and so big for what Kansas City can do. It changes what defenses are going to be looking at and how to stop them. And when you look at how Kansas City's offense has played this year, they have played with long, sustained drives, which take a lot of shorter plays. And when you have variability into what you're doing, that gives you the ability to have those long sustained 10, 11, 12, 13 play drives, which is what Kansas City's offense has been all season. And I don't think that's going to change in the playoffs. It may even get to the point where it's a little bit worse because they could go shorter at times with it getting colder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you have to have that rotation so you can stay fresh. As you were saying, JuJu Smith-Schuster not playing as much. 74 snaps on offense yesterday, 27 for JuJu, only 14 for P-Ryan. So, I mean, you can stack him up against anybody out there in terms of like what he's giving you per snap in terms of impact on the overall game. So you have to continue to feed that and widen it out. Just 2 snaps on offense for Nico Romeo. I do think that his kick returns are giving him some confidence, and I could see him getting onto the field. Now it's about balancing who's onto the field. That's going to be the next step forward, but that's a good problem to have against the Steelers when you have to go after them, I think, more vertically than you have been recently. But there's a lot of other ways to help that. And upon further review, digs into those details. That's coming next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you can bet just $5 and you get $150 back in bonus bets if you win right now. FanDuel Sportsbook, the app, gives you everything that you need to get bets in place for the NFL all in one place. So when you got a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, you live by that play-by-play, you can do that and much more on the same page right where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Upon further review is always one of my favorites of the day after shows because we get to get into the little details, the things that can turn games around that we don't necessarily see live or bring up live. My #1 is that if Jawan Taylor's not ready to go, Wanya Morris actually played better than I thought he did live. And on review, I think they can get by with him at least on the right-hand side. If he has to play left, I'm still not very happy with it. But I think on the right-hand side, it's markedly better for him and his confidence level.
You feel a lot more confident about that than I do. And I think part of that is because of who he's going to be going up against. TJ Watt is going to be who's going to be going up against. Yes, I thought he played better on the right-hand side than he has played on left. I think he could do it. I don't want to see him have to do it for multiple reasons. But the biggest just is the reality of his health. I still don't think he's back where he should be. And to me, one of the bigger things going into the playoffs is getting as many people healthy as possible. And one of those things that you're going to have to do is he's going to have to play more snaps in the Denver game than you would like him to, because more than likely if you win against the Steelers, you're going to be sitting most of your starters. Then he has to play. At that point, he has to go out there. He has to play a full game. And yeah, he's going to get the full week off for the bye week, if assuming they win, and that'll help. But giving him, this week off to get him ready for a full game where he's likely going to have to be the left tackle, because I can't imagine that they're going to have Driscoll go out there and be the left tackle, even if your quarterback's Carson Wentz, or if they're going to bring up Oladokun to play against the Broncos with Wentz as the backup. Who knows? That's obviously down the road. We'll talk about that when we get there. But I think he did play better. I'm happy from what I saw from him from right tackle. I think I'd feel a lot better if it wasn't TJ Watt of all people that he was going up against. Yeah. But that is, one of those things, and I still think he's not 100%. The thing I would like to see, and maybe this will give them a chance to do it, is get Suamataia some snaps from. If Wanya Morris isn't 100%, get him make him split him. Do something. Get Suamataia on the field. I understand he struggled at left tackle. I get that. But he needs snaps. He needs time on the field as well. Maybe it's not going to end up being this week, obviously, but they've got to get him more involved, and maybe as a sixth man. When you start looking at what you saw, and upon further review for me, it's a matter of Chris Roland Wallace keeps sticking his head in different places and showing up at different times that I was not expecting when I saw that he was going to when he made this roster. I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to be a special teamer. I didn't think he'd be seeing the field very much. Obviously, depth has changed a little bit. I get that because of Jalen Watson and just because of how Josh Williams and Nazeeh Johnson have played. I understand all that. But Roland Wallace has still put his hat in and shown ability to do things at different times. Is he where he's supposed to be all the time? And is he great in coverage all the time? No. But he is showing stuff as a rookie that shows that maybe he is a guy that can contribute, not necessarily just this year, but maybe in the future as he gets more comfortable with his role in the NFL.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He played the same number of snaps as Joshua Williams and outsnapped Nazeeh Johnson in that ball game, and that goes a long way. Did he give up a big play? Absolutely. Was he the greatest? No. But for a rookie, undrafted free agent in that situation, I completely agree with you, and I expect big things from him. I really like him kind of coming out of USC, and I think it's one of the best free agent signings in the UDFA class that the Chiefs had. Him and Steele, I think, have proven that out. But upon further review in that secondary, one other thing stood out to me, and we barely mentioned him because he had a couple of nice plays, and he's generally raising his game as we go into the postseason. But when you take a look at it, and all the stats were broken down, not only did he grade out very well, Justin Reed was actually negative on yards allowed yesterday for the game. -4 total, allowed 1 catch out of 4 targets. That is something you don't see very often. I thought he and McDuffie were all over the screens. That's obviously what happens when you get TFLs, but I didn't think it would hold up for negative yardage.
Yeah, no, it's surprising, but at the same time, maybe a little bit not surprising. And I say that because he's played well. I think that early in the season, you could see that he wasn't his normal self because he wasn't 100% or anywhere close to 100%. I think he's finally there. But the other big thing is he's playing a former team. That's always going to give guys extra juice. He's always going to be they're always going to be a little bit more fired up to play a team that they played for, show, hey, maybe you shouldn't have let me go. Maybe you should have been the one to pay me. I'm sure he doesn't really care. I mean, I'm sure he's happy about where he's come considering how things have gone for the Chiefs. But he is a player that has been a cornerstone of this defense for the entire time he's been here. Yes, there's been struggles at times. Yes, he's been out of position. Yes, he's had some bad plays, but he is consistently, I think, reading and reacting a lot better over the last couple of definitely the last half of the season. And I would say even really since his first year in Kansas City. I think it took him a little while to get comfortable in Spagnuolo's defense to understand what was going on. But once he started to get it, I'm not going to put him in the same recognition as Nick Bolton, but his recognition has gone way up, and it's closer to what you would want from a guy that's going to be protecting the back end of your defense and a guy that comes up consistently and plays almost at a linebacker level with the way he does things.
Yeah. And you need guys like him to train the younger guys in Shamari Connor and Brian Cook. And obviously Jaden Hicks, who's making an impact. He's coming along. We were a little worried halfway through the season, right? That we wasn't getting enough reps. Well, much like we've seen in years past, second half of the season starts to ramp up. And now to get all of your reps, you're really hitting late as you're preparing for the playoffs. That's only another good omen. Another shout out to Turk Wharton, who I thought played another very good game in rotation. Amenahue and Mike Dana both with a couple of pressures that weren't, super celebratory, but did contribute to the fact that GK had 7 and Chris had 8 pressures yesterday. And as a front, if you don't let down like that, it allows your stars to make more progress.
Yeah, and the thing that's encouraging for me, and I think the thing that kind of surprised me, one of the things we talked about after Amenahue came back was that they weren't really giving many snaps to FAU. And now it's a situation where you have to wonder if they're just looking at this and saying, okay, we're going to get him as many snaps as we can in the next 3 games because we're trying to make it to where we don't have to play that next game. And then he gets a whole game off, and FAU can go out there and he can get some more snaps and he can get ready for the playoffs. And that kind of makes sense to an extent, especially considering he hasn't got a ton of. I mean, obviously, Aminihu is coming back from a big injury. He doesn't have the snaps on the season, so he's got to get rounded into form. I just didn't expect them to throw him to the wolves, so to speak, because he comes back from injury and he basically is a full-time starter to an extent. I mean, it's not obviously he's not Max Crosby. There's not a defensive end in the NFL that is like Max Crosby when it comes to never coming off the field. But Aminihu has gotten a ton of snaps and has been on the field a lot, and I wasn't expecting that. But what he has shown is that he does have pass rush. It's not quite the explosiveness that he had last year, but that's what is to be expected at this point. But he's still getting better, and I think that his pass rush is continuing to get better with the more snaps that he gets.
Yeah, and number 3 in snap percentage on the defensive line yesterday, behind only George Karlaftis, who only missed 3 snaps total, and Chris Jones, who really only took about 9 off. Charles was 3rd on the defensive front. So like you said, right into the fire, and the rotation real heavy. Mike Dana was right behind him. I think they need to get Turk a little more. Only played 20 snaps. Leo Chanel wasn't out there as much as well. And I do think they need to continue that so they don't wear their top 3 out, 4 out. Is it
just me, or do you think that they're kind of saving some stuff at this point? Like, their defense has continued to evolve throughout the season, and I'm not saying that they're specifically trying to lose games by holding stuff back, but I do think that Chanel is going to be a much bigger part of the defense once the playoffs come around. He hasn't been, and that's a little bit abnormal for what you would think. Especially the crazy thing is go back 2 years when he came in. He was almost not playing the entire regular season. And then all of a sudden you get into the playoffs and his snap count, I don't know, doubled or tripled from what it was during the regular season. So to me, I just think it's what they're going to do in the regular season. He's not going to play as much. They're not going to show their full hand. They're not going to show how they're going to play defense in the playoffs. And the second the playoffs start, he's going to start getting more snaps. And he's going to be doing different things. It doesn't have to be just him being a linebacker either. He can come down and rush the passer and give you a different look.
Yeah, and he was in coverage 10 times yesterday out of 21 snaps. Ran run defense for 10 of them, coverage for 10, only rushed once. So I agree with you. I think they are like assigning, even when they're in base, to let him play in space a little bit more, save him as a weapon for later. They used mugging down on the A-gaps without him yesterday to good effect. Just imagine when you get him in there. So I do think that is a step up for Specs.
I still want to see him on the offense, though. Just saying.
I do too. Hey,
give me some on the offense.
Full backfield with him and Steele. Yeah, I mean, who's going to stop him? I'm here for all of that. Let us know what you're here for or what you noticed upon further review. We'd love to know. We are going to have a shortened week, but don't worry. We're going to get inside intel from Chris Carter over on the Steelers show. Old friend of mine used to do the Locked On NFL show with Chris. Lot going there, and then we will get you ready. Hope you guys are ready for your Christmas because we're just about out of shopping time. I know I need to get some last-minute stuff done. So thank you for being with us. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell, hit KC Chiefs Corner, hit NFL 33, as well as RGR Football. We have a ton of things coming for you. We're looking forward to this week. It is Christmas week and a ball game all wrapped up in one. Thanks for helping us get prepared, and we will have more for you tomorrow.